Hello, friends. Aloha, Peaceful Island gang. Hi, everybody. Hi, Radical. Hi, Useless. Hi, Julie. Hi, Irene. Hi, Marie. How is everybody? I've got a great article today. Well, I think it's a great article. I have just read little bits and pieces of it, and then I said, this is perfect article to read on stream. It's uplifting. And I think we need more of that. So many times I'm looking for women-centered articles to read, and like women-centered stuff is really negative a lot of the time. So cool to have something positive. And yeah, I hope everybody's doing great. Happy Friday. Um, I've been doing good. I've been touching grass, which has been really nice. And yeah, I've just been working a ton. Just finished up a book about cults, which is a topic that's so fascinating to me. I've got another fantasy novel I'm working on. So, yep, just been super busy and doing a lot of fitness stuff. So, getting in shape, getting ready for summer. And yeah, I hope everybody's doing great. Feel free to say hello in the chat. Love to hear from you all. Representation, I think, is a super important topic. And, I really believe you can't be what you can't see. It's much harder. It adds another layer, another barrier that we have to fight through when we have no examples of the people that we want to become who look like us, who are our gender, who are ethnicity or whatever. So the article we're going to read today has a lot to do with representation. And yeah, I think we can just get started. If anyone, we can talk about whatever other stuff in the news afterwards. Let's get started. I'm really excited to read this article. So it's a little interactive article from the New York Times. Starts off by saying, growing up, I thought being named after Connie Chung made me unique. I don't know if everyone out there knows who Connie Chung is. I think the article is going to explain who she is, but she was quite famous when I was growing up in the 1980s. And I think as a child, I didn't realize like what a barrier breaking person she was, and being a intellectual Asian American woman represented in the news, presenting the news. Actually, she was a newscaster. So yeah. Then I found out about the rest of us. And so here are all these Connies who were born in the 80s, my generation. All cute little baby chubby cheek faces. And here's the article. It's called Generation Connie. Little Meow says, she was such a class act. I agree. Just a sort of a classy lady. So here we are, all these Connies all grown up. And the article is by Connie Wang with photographs by Connie Aramaki. So let's dive right in. It was my first day of college at the University of California, Berkeley, when I started to realize there were more of us out there. Suddenly, I was among a student body that was almost 50% Asian. While I was standing in line to order a sandwich at the campus cafe, I heard a voice from across the room. Connie Wang! I swiveled to see who it could be. I didn't know anyone yet. But the person wasn't shouting at me. Instead, a girl standing nearby waved in response. Afterward, I went back to my dorm room and typed Connie into the campus Facebook. I found the girl from the sandwich line, and I also found many, many more. In my freshman class alone, there was a Connie Zhang, a Connie Guo, a Connie Zhu, a few Connie Changs, and multiple Connie Wangs. No wonder the university email address I'd wanted had been taken. All this time, I thought the story of my name was special. Little did I know it was the story of a generation. I just got chills. Really cool that she had grown up thinking that she was special 'cause I don't know, maybe she came from maybe they'll talk about that in the article, but where she came from, if it wasn't an area with a lot of Chinese people or, um, being named Connie was this unique thing that made her special, but then she goes out into the world and finds out, actually, there are a lot of people like her, which is a really cool thing to discover too. Unlike most people, I was able to pick my own name. I already had one, of course, Xiao Kang, my Chinese name given to me by my maternal grandfather, which referred to the Communist Party's commitment to achieving a moderately prosperous society. Which is kind of a funny origin for a name, right? For a girl's name. But in 1990, my parents decided to raise me in the United States, and we all had a chance to choose a new identity. They asked for my 3-year-old's opinion. What would I like to be called in this new place? I answered, the story goes, with Connie. After that pretty Ai or auntie we watched on TV. That Ai was Constance Yu Hua Chung, or as the world knows her, Connie Chung. Ms. Chung had rejoined CBS News a year earlier. She would eventually become the first Asian and second woman to be an anchor of a major weekday news program, appearing nightly alongside Dan Rather to deliver the world's biggest news events to Americans at home, my family included. Existential says, in high school, I was friends with an exchange student from Hong Kong, and she had a Chinese name and an English name she chose. I remember thinking that was so cool. Yeah, I think that's pretty common for kids who come to study over here to choose a name that's more assimilating. They don't all do it, but many of them do, I think. I had a couple Asian friends in college who um, had their real name and then their English name. So I think that is pretty common. Um, at the time, my mother, Ching Li, was recalibrating her expectations for what her life would look like. She'd been the editor of nonfiction books in China, but found the prospect of attempting to climb the professional ladder in the United States without a mastery of the language deeply intimidating. So that's super interesting. Also, that language barrier from Asian languages to English is really, really significant, in both directions. I think it's very hard for English speakers to learn Chinese, Mandarin, any Asian languages, just totally different phonemes, different sentence structure, everything. The writing versus, like, trying to learn Romance languages like Spanish and French and stuff that are actually very similar to ours. Some friends told her that Chinese immigrants had found employment at restaurants, so she tried that for a while, but the job was boring and she quit. So much of her early years in America felt both formidable and dull, isolating and overwhelming. So they came to the country to raise their daughter for hopes that she would have a better life than what they could have in China. But for them as parents and as adults, and specifically for her mother, she she was sacrificing her own. It sounded like she had a somewhat interesting job in China, couldn't do that job here because the language difference, and, she sacrificed so that her daughter could have a better life. Um, yeah. It's really amazing to imagine someone doing that for their child. I guess maybe it's hard for me to imagine, but same time, if you're gonna have a child, go all in, right? Go big or go home. What gave her some comfort, though, was seeing Ms. Chung on TV. Here was a woman with a face like hers, with great taste in clothes, who wore beautiful makeup and had stylish hair, yet asked aggressive questions of powerful people, most of whom did not seem to treat Ms. Chung any differently because of her appearance. So that's what I'm talking about, the importance of representation, um, how inspiring and how much hope it gives to people to see someone who looks like them, um, you know, going after these things that are like maybe if without that representation, they wouldn't feel that that's available to them. It just gives you a lot more self-confidence, I think, to see people who look like you. So here is Connie Chung hosting the CBS Evening News in 1991, the year after the author named herself Connie. Connie Chung was trusted and respected, qualities that my mother herself had enjoyed in China. So when I picked my name, my mom readily acceded. What more could she hope for from her own Connie? What my family didn't know was that a version of the same scenario was playing out in living rooms and hospitals across the country. Asian American families from the late 1970s through the mid 90s, mostly Chinese, all new immigrants, had considered the futures of their newborn daughters and, inspired by one of the few familiar faces on their TVs, signed their own wishes, hopes, and ambitions onto countless birth certificates in the form of a single name, Connie. So Connie came to represent this kind of hopefulness, ambition, seeing that, especially for daughters, right? This is why this article is so interesting to me. It's like, especially in Chinese culture, where, like many cultures across the world, you know, people are disappointed if they have a daughter versus a son, right? And throughout Asia, specifically, sex selective abortion is common, especially China had that one child policy. You only got one chance to have a child. And so people wanted a son if they could have one. So it's really interesting to see that, they assigned so much hope and ambition for their daughters. It's kind of progressive in a way, right? Today, it's common to join an organization, take a new job, or attend a conference and meet an Asian Connie. At every workplace, I've been one of a few. And with each one of them, I found it's always the same story. No, it's not short for Constance. Yes, they grew up watching Connie Chung on TV. And yeah, it is weird, isn't it, that they've never met a non Asian Connie their age either. Because Connie is not a popular name, not now, not when I chose it, and not for many decades prior. According to the Social Security Administration, Connie peaked in the 1950s when it was the 40th most popular name for girls. In 1987, the year I was born, even Priscilla was more popular, which was probably not a very popular name at all. And still, I've had an enormously difficult time securing social media handles, usernames, and company email addresses. Over the years, I've come to realize that I'm part of a phenomenon, Generation Connie. By now, I've talked to dozens of Connies within this sisterhood and learned that we have a remarkable amount in common, that it is not by chance that our families, and in particular our mothers, all gravitated toward the same name. We all have our own stories about how our families came to the United States and why they chose the name they did. But we're also part of a larger story about the patterns that form from specific immigration policies and the ripple effects that one woman on TV prompted just by being there, doing her job. So just by being there and doing her job, she was representing something that other people could look to as something that they could achieve in their own lives, and that's really inspiring. Irene says, if I recall correctly, there is not a single nation in the world with a female birth preference over a male birth preference. I think Iceland had a 50-50 split, but no daughter preference anywhere. Um, and yet there's no such thing as institutional misogyny, according to Existential Gamer, right? Yeah. So we're told that misogyny is fake, it's not real, and yet universally male children are preferred. Okay. So let's learn a little bit more about Connie Chung for those of us who are not familiar with her. I know we do have some younger viewers. So yeah, she was really super famous when I was growing up. Seeing good role models when you're a kid is such a big win. Totally agree. Great comment. All right. So Connie Chung was born in 1946 in Washington, D.C., the last of 10 children, 5 of whom died in infancy. Her family fled China in 1945. She was the first to be born in this country. Well, that's quite a start to life. The last of 10 children, 5 of whom died in infancy. All the rest were born in China, and she was the first to be born in the US in 1946, right after the end of World War II, to contextualize the global history there. Um, Very interesting, and her family came to Washington, D.C. I wonder if that was a diaspora or, why Washington, D.C. I guess, all large cities have some Chinese population to an extent. Yeah. This is cute. Little Meow says, Dana Scully and Elaine Bennis shaped my view of the world. Good role models. Existential says, some people claim the Western world is a gynocracy, but even in America, boys are preferred. I've heard men and women describe daughters as drama and way harder than boys. I wonder if there's truth to that. Are stereotypes for a reason? Well, yeah, I think maybe girls are harder because girls have it harder. How about that? And they're in a society where everything's more difficult to them. It's probably going to be more difficult to raise them also. Sad. Let's see. For you youngins, people like to shit on the 80s, 90s for being problematic, but from my view, it was way better for female representation. I've talked about that. I made a video about that a couple months ago, that I think was pretty strong video. So if you haven't seen it, maybe go watch it. I think the video was called I'm nostalgic for women can be anything feminism, and representation, I would say, was better in the 80s and 90s. It was in ways, at least with young women, less sexualized, more wholesome, more like that feeling of you can be anything, you know? So, yeah. Xena would never be made today. Dude, Xena was a phenomenon. Anyone who doesn't have an angry daughter isn't giving her a realistic view of the world. I like that, Julie. Thank you. Irene says, I'll never know what it's like to have grown up then, but it looked so different. Yeah, and pre-internet or like early internet was just a totally different vibe. Little Meow says, "So over-sexualized now, it's sickening. Everything in general. I blame porn and disposable people, dating apps. I think the internet has been a mistake. I really do. I really think the internet has been a mistake." I was kinda thinking, actually, I was like, "You know, it'd be really nice to go back to dial-up internet." Dial-up internet where your time is limited because you can't be on the phone, you can't be occupying the phone line for hours on end, and it's slow, and you can't stream, and you can't do any of these things that are, like, super, you know obviously, we could be doing this, but dial-up internet, I'm nostalgic for it. Alright, so let's learn about Connie Chung. So she was the first child in her family to be born in the US. She was the 10th child in her family, wild, and she was born in 1946, right after World War II. So from the hospital, her father, an official with the Chinese nationalist government, phoned her 4 older sisters at home to pick a name for their new sibling. Flipping through a magazine, they landed at random on Constance Moore, an Iowa-born starlet who had made her name in wartime musicals. But no one ever called the new baby Constance, Ms. Chung told me. It was always Connie. In college, Ms. Chung found her biology major uninspiring and eventually secured an internship on Capitol Hill. The pace was exciting, and she decided to switch to journalism. She picked television because it was novel, and with TV stations in the 1960s being pushed to diversify their ranks, she figured she might have a better chance. Ms. Chung was quickly hired by a local news station and soon afterward began working at CBS News as a correspondent under Walter Cronkite. So she was inspired by journalism and went in that direction, and sounds like she worked hard and followed her dream and, didn't let her gender or her ethnicity stop her, right? In the beginning, what helped me get the job was being a minority and a woman, but from that moment, it was a detriment, Ms. Chung said. So it got her foot in the door, but after that, it was hard. I was working in a newsroom dominated by white men. I was covering white men in Washington, a male dominated city and government. It was surprising and disconcerting for all of them, including me. So this was a white man's world, and she must have felt uncomfortable at times, right? It could be lonely at times, especially at the start. "I was just trying to keep my head above water," Ms. Chung said. What she couldn't have known is how many Asian families were already paying attention. Again, the importance of representation. So, you know, if all we see is white men ever, it's gonna be very hard for, um it's gonna be very hard for women and minorities to see themselves in those positions and to feel empowered, and so it took not only her putting herself out there and putting herself in this position, but also the people who gave her this opportunity, right? And who said, "Hey, we need to diversify." So that's something, it doesn't just happen, it's not just gonna happen magically. It's like the people who are in power, who are able to show this representation of different types of people who are not white men, need to prioritize that so that everyone can have role models and not just little white boys can have role models. It's much better, and it's much more fair and equitable and all that stuff for everyone to have someone they can look to. Um, so yeah. One of those families was the Lius, who moved from China to Ohio in 1989. Connie Liu's mother, Bing Han, who had been a nurse in China, ended up working at Panda Express and Four Seasons hotels as a housekeeper. So that's a kind of a common immigrant story, I think, having to change careers and change jobs to something more menial Of course, immigrants do all those jobs, that other people don't wanna do, and that which is why I think it's very funny, when people are against immigration, like, it's immigrants who want to be here, and they wanna be here so bad, they're willing to do jobs that, like, nobody else really wants to do, and not that they shouldn't have opportunities to do better things, of course they should, but it's just kind of a fact about that. Ms. Liu, 28, relayed what her mother had recently told her about when it came time to name her daughter. I wanted you to be known, her mother said, at a time when a lot of Asian females were not known. She was like, I want to find the most ambitious person around and name my child after them, Ms. Liu said. For an Asian female, that was basically only Connie Chung. Another family, the Chungs, no relation to the news anchor, immigrated from South Korea to Arizona in the early 80s and worked odd jobs to get by. Connie Chung, 37, told me her parents didn't speak a lot of English at home and didn't know a lot of American names. When they were naming their daughter, they looked to TV for inspiration and zeroed in on the woman who had just joined NBC as an anchor for several primetime specials. This is a name we know with a face we recognize that looks like us, Ms. Chung said of her parents' thinking. And our kid is going to be American and hopefully achieve things like this woman did. Connie Chung Jo was born in 1977, making her at 45 one of the oldest Connies I interviewed for this article. At the time, the original Connie Chung had left her job at CBS and had returned to the local news station to gain more experience. She was working in Los Angeles, a big market, but was not yet a household name. Even so, she was the success story, said Ms. Joe. Ms. Joe was given the name Connie by her mom, one of a handful of women to graduate from her medical school in South Korea. Ms. Joe's mother came from a world where she didn't feel like she could have the same level of success and power as a woman, her daughter told me. But America might be different, her mom thought. People saw Connie Chung on every night on TV. She was famous and popular. She'd made it. There was an additional appeal to the name. Many of the Mandarin-speaking Connies I spoke to pointed out that Mandarin for healthy girl, Connie, sounds a lot like Connie. I heard similar stories from Cantonese speakers and in one case, a daughter of Vietnamese immigrants. The readily pronounceable Connie at the center of a Venn diagram of extended families back home sat at the center of a Venn diagram of extended families back home and new classmates, teachers, and peers in America. It was a bridge that helped ease the transition to a new home. So here is Connie Chung, 34, and her mother. Ms. Ho said she found Connie Chung's story inspiring and wanted our daughter to be just as successful as she is. Here's Connie Liu, 28, and her mother, Bing Han. Ms. Han said she named her daughter Connie because I also wanted her to be famous and outstanding. Very cute. Connie Wu and her 29 and her mother. Ms. Zhu said she and her husband chose the name Connie because it was easy to pronounce. Also, we watched TV. She said we saw Connie. My own family's first stop in America was the Midwest, specifically the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, been there, where my father was studying as part of the first wave of Chinese students who were allowed to leave mainland China to earn advanced degrees. During my father's second year, while my mother was visiting, he attended a protest on campus in solidarity with the students congregating in Tiananmen Square. Mm. When a photo from the protest ran in the Lincoln Star, someone anonymously informed my father's parents back in Qingdao of what their son was up to, an ambiguous threat that indicated my family was being watched. I've heard that if you go to China and you ask about Tiananmen Square, no one will talk about it, right? They pretend like they don't know what it is. Maybe some of them don't know what it is, but China's kind of a scary place in that way. Definitely no freedom of speech, freedom of protesting, and all this, the things that we probably take for granted here somewhat, right? Um, and so, along with so many other Chinese grad students studying in the United States, my parents took advantage of a fast track green card offer in response to what in China is euphemistically called the June 4th incident. What was supposed to be a stint in America turned into a permanent move for my parents, who were highly educated, politically shaken, and apparently stuck. After earning his PhD, my father found work in his field as an engineer at tech companies. My mother eventually became an accountant, organizing numbers instead of words into cents. Her resentment at having to do this was matched only by her insistence that I should never have to. That's cute. She pressured me to achieve in school like other Chinese mothers I knew, but she gave me the freedom to head in any direction as long as I could be good at it and useful. The other girls in my classes at weekend Chinese school, whose names were split between the popular names of the 80s, Jessica, Amy, Jennifer, or the phonetic spellings of their Chinese names, Meng, Chan, and Yun, marveled at the latitude I enjoyed. The story of Generation Connie is a small slice of the story of Asian immigration to the United States, much of which is not unique to us. Changes to immigration law in 1965 brought a wave of ambitious and relatively fortunate families to this country who then had to find new footholds, often in majority white communities. Their American born children were all raised with dreams. We're all raised with the dreams, worries, and aspirations that form out of profound culture shock. Something cannot imagine. I cannot imagine. You really have to be so brave and probably ambitious or desperate or something to move into a completely different culture. I actually have a lot of respect for people who do that. Um, I mean, obviously, my ancestors did it at some point, like, in a sense. But, wow, it's just to take a moment and appreciate that. Again, there are conversations that happen in our country where immigrants are really vilified. But actually, when you stop and think on a human level what it means to immigrate and how difficult that is, it is actually very, very impressive, I think. Um, but the names these parents gave their children represented so many different approaches to handling the shock, holding on, letting go, diving in, reaching out for a lifeline. I don't think it's a coincidence that all the Connies I spoke to described their mothers in similar terms as leaders, brave, athletic, creative, successful, idealistic, and capable. These moms were architects, editors, and medical professionals who'd often had to abandon their careers and reinvent themselves upon moving to a new country, who looked at the television and saw how things might be different for their daughters. Very few Americans are emigrating to other countries and taking lesser work, right? And that's the story of so many immigrants who come here. And again, something that we should have a much greater appreciation for than we do, just appreciation for that struggle to come to a new society, a new culture, and have to do a job that's one or many steps down from what you were doing just to just to live in that place. I obviously understood none of this when I inked the name Connie onto the paper Social Security card I got when my family became permanent residents, but today when I look at my own name, I see every footnote. Very beautifully written article too, by the way. In early 2020, whilst working on a memoir, I cold emailed Connie Chung. To my surprise, she responded. During our first phone conversation, she was sharp, hilarious, and down to earth. She excused herself to get a cocktail from her husband, Maury, and regaled me with stories about her short lived talk show, Weekends with Maury and Connie, which she had closed out by singing an off key Torch song. The only video I could find of it on YouTube is titled Connie Chung Has Lost It. She was working on some new projects, taking care of family members, and obviously paying close attention to the news. Had I heard about this COVID thing? It's so nice to meet another Connie, she told me toward the end of our call. But didn't you know? I responded, there are so many of us out here named after you. You're kidding, she said. No way. When you first told me about this phenomenon, I was flabbergasted, Ms. Chung said. When we talked again this spring, I was truly floored. I told her what dozens of Connies had told me, that they were proud of being associated with Miss Chung, that they were grateful that they always knew there was a Connie who had gone first. So here is Connie Chung at age 25 as a CBS News reporter. She was really pretty. I shared with Ms. Chung what Connie Chung, the one from Arizona, had told me about how other children used to make fun of her name when she was growing up. As a kid, that just made me want to die inside, she said. When the Arizona Ms. Chung married, she was eager to take her husband's last name. I was like, I'm not going to be Connie Chung anymore. Well, yeah, of course, I guess if you have the exact name of a celebrity, that's going to be pretty tricky. What a babe, I agree. But as time passed, she found herself thinking differently about what her parents were trying to do when they named her. I've thought a lot about it, she said, and what it would be like for me to immigrate to a completely new country and have all these thoughts and ideas about what my life would be like and achieving the American dream and hopes that I would have for my kids. A year later, she changed her name back. Interesting. So she took her husband's name and then she changed it back. Probably doesn't happen that often. Oh, this is interesting, Irene. My great grandparents were immigrants, and it's one of the reasons I stopped wearing makeup because makeup tends to Americanize your face and erase unique features. Very, very interesting. I never have thought about that, and that's a great point. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Ms. Chung, the original, grew quiet. I think what I'm about to say is very Chinese, but I saw myself as a worker bee who was trying to survive in a business that was very brutal, she said. She'd never thought about how she was being seen by others. I was just clawing my way through a lot of hazing and sexual and racial reactions to my existence. I was clueless, really. I couldn't imagine what anyone was perceiving as a viewer or if anyone noticed. So sometimes we don't know the impact that we're having on people who are looking to us as role models, right? She definitely didn't know the effect she was having on people just by being her and doing her thing. I've long had a fraught relationship with the idea of representation. Seeing ourselves, or rather, the wealthiest, best resourced, most assimilated amongst us, on magazine covers and television screens is the smallest symbol of our status as Americans and comes with its own forms of exclusion and bigotry. When headlines celebrating Asian American films with Asian American casts run next to articles about Asian American disenfranchisement and poverty, representation can feel particularly empty. So I think that's a really excellent point, right? Not just representation can't just be the most glamorous people or whatever. I posted about Martha Stewart being on the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition and looking all sexy, and she's totally photoshopped and she's had plastic surgery, I'm pretty sure, right? Even though she says she's never had plastic surgery. Whatever. That's like a whole other topic. Could be a video topic. But, some people, but a minority of people were saying, well, it's great to have this representation of older women. And I'm like, that's not representation though. That's exploitation, you know? And so representation can't, it has to be either something that's a little achievable, a little aspirational, or or ourselves, like reflections of ourselves, maybe again, like, yeah, a little bit more aspirational but achievable version of what we can become. But seeing someone who looks like you, who's a billionaire or something, is really kind of useless, right? Yeah, yay, now all women get objectified. Yippee, right? So, um, definitely like, yes, sexualization is not representation. Objectification is not representation. Um, exploitation is not representation. So, but there are positive forms of representation that I think are important. Um, I know all that, but I also know its power, how a single person can become a vehicle for so many others' personal hopes, how they can find in her a sense of belonging that's otherwise in short supply. A few weeks later, as part of a photo shoot for the article, the New York Times invited Connie Chung into a studio with 10 other Connies named after her. The group went out to dinner afterward. I couldn't make the cross country flight in time to attend, and it wasn't until after the session was over and I listened to the recordings of the day that it became clear what an emotional moment we had inadvertently engineered. So she didn't even get to attend that, even though she kind of put this all together. So that's a little sad, I guess. Let's see. Ms. Chung went around shaking hands. The Connies took turns sharing their stories, how their parents came to America, what life was like when they were born, and how their mothers found comfort in Ms. Chung's presence on TV. Connie's son, 42, talked about how her mom tried meticulously to recreate Ms. Chung's hairstyle and how she gave her daughter the name Connie partly as a gesture of hope that she would speak perfect English because she didn't know that that was like an automatic thing if you're born here, right? So that's super interesting, thinking that your immigrant or fearing that your immigrant child is not going to speak perfect English. Um, which I guess some immigrants' children do speak with an accent, but if they're raised in the school system, they should probably have very little accent. Not that that matters, right? But I could see that being a fear of an immigrant parent for sure. When it was her turn, Connie Ko told Miss Chung how she, not her parents, chose the name Connie. From your crib, Ms. Chung said, joking, how did you do that? Oh, when it was her turn, Connie Ko told Miss Chung how she, not her parents, chose the name Connie. From your crib, Miss Chung said, joking, how did you do that? The room laughed, but by then Miss Co, 35, had started to tear up. She explained that she'd picked the name after college when she decided she needed an American name in addition to her Korean name, Kyun Young. You're an iconic person, she told Ms. Chung, who had also grown teary. Ms. Ko told me she later became emotional because she remembered how, when she chose her name, she was desperate to be able to stand up for herself as Ms. Chung had throughout her career. Meeting Connie Chung felt like a miracle, Ms. Ko wrote to me in an email. At the photo shoot, the photographer Connie Aramaki, 46, told Ms. Chung that she'd originally thought her parents had chosen the name Connie because they wanted her daughter to become a journalist like Ms. Chung. Now she'd come to appreciate what they actually intended. What it means is your parents, oof, got chills again. What it means is your parents want you to work hard and be brave and take chances. Ms. Chung's voice, normally clear and confident, was barely audible on the tape I'd been sent. I did do that, she said quietly, and I felt something unfasten in my chest. America today looks very different from when Connie Chung was born, or even when my family immigrated. Young Asian Americans may never experience the same type of loneliness that Ms. Chung did, or the longing that my mother harbored for the assurance that things might be okay, that her daughters would have a fighting chance in ways that she had given up on for herself. None of this is enough to declare victory. The hurdles remain so high for so many, but it is a small triumph that I can now imagine my child looking back with curiosity on the days when a single news anchor could matter so much. So there is a little video here. Um, and you can go on the New York Times. There's a little bit more video and audio because it's a little interactive thing. So, anyways, great article, Connie Wang. Thank you for writing that. And yeah, it's very uplifting. I think touches on a lot of really important things about representation. I know I'm like getting a little emotional myself. Just it's a great story. It's like she didn't even know what impact she was having on these women, and what she represented to them, and it mixes in the story of immigrants and what immigrant mothers especially go through. So great story. Thank you all for joining me for that. I'm gonna go back to the big screen here. Hello, everybody. Yeah, great story. I don't know, anything else on anyone's mind for today? How's everybody doing? Radical and I know Radical's been kind of taking a little break. So have I. So, yeah. Long weekend. We have Monday off. I think our long weekend is next week, Memorial Day here. I like how existing and thriving for your own sake can be helpful for so many. Yeah, just to show that is possible, right? And yeah, I think Radical, you're having some forest fires up there. And we've had quite a bit of air pollution here too, and I have to wonder. I've heard that the air pollution in New England right now is from the Canada fires, but then I've also heard that in Seattle they're having air pollution from it. So I don't know how it could be like going in both directions, but Irene says, I've been reading about the Mosuo tribe, really interesting tiny matriarchal society in China. That sounds very interesting. I just read a book about the transatlantic slave trade, which was really interesting and really enlightening. Learned a ton. Thanks to my public school education, I have a lot of gaps in my knowledge of American history. And yeah, it was super, super interesting. But what was really interesting is reading about the societies where American slaves originated from and Caribbean slaves specifically. Um, Many of those societies were matrilineal, which means that the bloodline passes down through the mother rather than the father. And especially in like Ghana, which was called the Gold Coast, um, a lot of times women would raise children communally and not even involve um, the the father at all. And actually, one reason people okay, so yeah, something that was a huge revelation for me and I didn't know is, um and I can't believe I didn't know this. Like, this is a crazy thing to not know when you're as old as I am. But they were already slaves in Africa. Like, there are very few people who were brought over as slaves to either to America or to the Caribbean who were not already slaves in Africa. But their conception of slavery was much different than our conception of slavery here and how it functioned. And in some of those societies, they had a system of what they called like kinship, which that your family was not necessarily and who you lived with and your how your society was organized was not necessarily who you were blood related to. It could be people who were like, you just kind of adopted into your sphere. And there were men who had been alienated from their children by women who, um, who then took on slaves so that they could have a form of family. That was not the majority of slaves over there. The majority of slaves became slaves due to war and stuff like that. War, serving prison sentences where they served out their prison sentences by becoming a slave and things like that. But, um, very, very interesting. But yeah, that whole idea of the matrilineal society. Now they had a king, so it was like the Ashanti and Fonte people. They had kings, so they were actually patriarchal, but they were matrilineal, and there's like an interesting distinction there. Existential says, I have legit argued with people about this. Matrilineal is the only lineage that makes any kind of sense. And it's only because we're brainwashed by patriarchy that we think any different. What's has always been super interesting to me is in Kentucky Derby was recently. And in horse racing, they always say, who was the sire of the horse? Who was the sire? And like, who is the sire? Who is the grandsire? Whatever. Like, they only care about the male as if the the mare doesn't provide half the DNA for the horse, right? Like, it's so funny that animal pedigrees are always like that. It's always like, who is the father? It's like, and especially in horse racing too, where sometimes mares win. Like in all horse sports, mares compete equally with male horses. And yet from a breeding standpoint, it's like nobody cares about whose the dam is, the mare. Anyways, I've always found that was very funny. And yeah, this is true. It's if your mother is Jewish, you are Jewish. If your mother's not Jewish, you can never really be Jewish. I think David Cross has a good joke about that. where, he's an atheist, and then someone says to him, uh, "But was your mother's vagina Jewish?" You know, meaning that if you had a Jewish mom, that's it, you're Jewish whether you wanna be or not. Uh, Radical says, "My family bred paint horses, and who the sire was a big deal in those circles." Misogyny. Nay. Um, ah, Especially before DNA, regardless, there is zero doubt which baby came out of which mother. Patrilineal only exists because men are jealous of our reproductive capabilities and wanted control. Yeah, isn't there a whole thing about that? About like how men that's like a big fear that men have on like a subconscious level or something, that like the child is not really theirs. I'm sure some of you know more about that than me, but I feel like that's a thing. Um, Not womb envy. I feel like there's another word for it, where men are afraid. I don't know if that's one of the reasons why one of the leading causes of death in or the leading cause of death in pregnant women is, HOMOCIDE, because men are afraid that the baby's not theirs. On a subconscious level, I don't know. Reddit is literally a case study for that stupid fear. Yeah, so this is a thing, right? Knowing for certain envy. Another book I just read. I read a book about this cult, and very, very, very weird cult. True story. I can't talk in any detail about what it is because I think there's only 2 books about it or something. But basically, they, didn't believe in the nuclear family like a lot of cults don't. And so when women were going to get pregnant, they would have sex with like 5 or 6 different guys so they wouldn't know who the father was intentionally. So when the woman was ovulating, every day she would have sex with like 3 different guys or whatever. Um, so they would intentionally not know who the father was because this cult like didn't believe in raising children with like the mommy and the daddy in a nuclear family. It was like a communal society or whatever. And that's totally the opposite, right? Um, I have heard that many animals can smell their offspring to minimize incest. Yes, community children. That idea. Men also perpetrate majority jealous abusive control, which I think has roots in that fear. Don't male and cats have anatomy to ensure the kittens are theirs? Like, I know the male cat's penis has like spikes on it so that when it exits, is what goes in. It's whatever. When when it exits, it like tears up the cat's vagina. So yeah, probably something like that. This is interesting. Like with primates, mm, I don't know. Actually, I don't know how it works with primates, but they mate with multiple males. Because I know that primate females make a lot of noise during procreation to attract other males to them. I guess whatever. I'm curious about this quote now. I don't know, how did we even get into talking about this? Oh, we were talking about matrilineal societies and, um, yeah, very interesting stuff. Very interesting. Totally off topic from the article we read, which is totally fine. I like the format of first hour is the article, second hour is just whatever we wanna talk about. I don't know if I'll go a whole hour today, maybe. I don't know, I'm so like this, slumped over. It's really blue in here. Okay, I'll tell you why. Because I have these lights, and I don't normally have the other side, like, fully blue like that, but my phone has been right. My phone has been in the car for a couple days, and I'm just trying to not use my phone, so it's off. It's probably battery is dead, and it's sitting in the car, and the phone is the way that you change the color on the lights, so that's why it's extra blue in here today. I don't remember when I changed it to that. Must have been a little while ago. I don't have a Discord server. I have Discord, but the only people I talk to are Radical and my friend K-Dubs. So I just use it as a chat, instant messenger type thing. I don't do any of that the server stuff. I just don't want the time, the responsibility, etc. Kind of trying to minimize my time online a little bit. Hello, Lee. Hola, our great patroness of the channel. Lions unalive all the kittens of the previous male when they have won over a new pack. Only the mature female offspring gets to live. I know, and males are the worst. It's so crazy why somehow different. It's like there are this is every species. I just watched it was on PBS, really, really good. It was like Scandinavia something. Let me see if I can find it. Because I would totally recommend it if you like any kind of nature shows. Scandinavia. Why can't I spell PBS? Oh, it's called Wild Scandinavia. Really cool. I don't know if you could just see me typing why it went like black for a second. Okay, whatever. That was super weird. Anyways, they were showing like seals. They got sick fjords for sure. Yeah. It's the same thing with seals. The baby seal is only with its mother for like 18 days, and pretty much that whole time the mother is just trying to keep the giant male seals away because all they do is the whole time is they're trying to kill the babies. And I'm like, it's literally every species, and yet somehow in humans, supposedly men are just these tame, gentle creatures, and it's all in our heads that violence has anything to do with males. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, step parents, creepy. Meerkats too. Yeah, it's really it's hard to be a baby out in this world. So I've been obsessed with this story about this woman and the city bike. Obsessed. I'm obsessed. Where is this gonna go? I feel really bad for this poor woman. I wanna make a video about it actually. Like, I made a video about the parking lot lady, and I think they're actually pretty similar, similar but different. I think parking lot lady was not anywhere to the magnitude, got anywhere to the magnitude of hate as the city bike lady, whose name is Sarah Comrie. and I went on Twitter. I hardly ever go on Twitter, and I was reading what people were writing about her, and it was literally some of the worst things I've ever read on the internet. Like, awful, awful. Like, people were like, um, you know, if I ever saw if a woman ever did that to me in public, I would M word her on the spot and stuff like that. And people just write this stuff on Twitter. It's totally, totally insane. Um, unfortunately, guns don't make you safer in that situation. Um, I guess I can tell this story. Actually, I typed it out to my friend. Let me see what I wrote. So basically, about 4 or 5 days ago, someone posted this video of a woman. She's on a city bike. So in New York City, they have these communal bikes that you can pick up in one spot. You pay for it on an app on your phone through your credit card or whatever, and then you take the bike to elsewhere in the city. Radical found her quote. Too late, girl. You're gonna have to return to that later. Okay. So anyways, they have these bikes that you pick up in one place and send to another. This is the let me see. Just put this in here. You can go read about it. Um and so she's this hospital worker. She's in her scrubs. She's sitting on this bike. And this guy starts filming her and he said, "I paid for that bike. I paid for that bike. You're stealing my bike. Get out of here." And she starts to panic and cry. And she starts yelling help and stuff. And she's surrounded by 5 teenage boys. They're all much bigger than her. She's like this little tiny woman. And they are taking this video of her and they're ridiculing her and yelling at her. And I saw this and I was like, damn, it made me so uncomfortable when I first saw it. And the whole narrative was that she had stolen this guy's bike and then she was trying to get these kids killed. She's a white supremacist who is yelling help, hoping that someone will come and kill these kids who are surrounding her, which is totally insane. And when I saw this, I was like, how could anyone believe that that was the real story of what was going on in this situation, right? And then we find out later that she is actually the one who paid for the bike and they were kids who were just harassing the hell out of her. But in the meantime, they've posted this a video of her having this breakdown and people just went in so hard on her. They doxed her. They're saying someone should go to this bitch's house and put her out of her misery and all this kind of stuff, right? Like, crazy. When I heard that the press was going around to her neighbors like, "Hey, do you know a racist lives here?" She didn't even say a single racist thing. It's just that she's white and they're black. And so automatically any interaction between a white person and a black person, no matter what's happening, is suddenly the white person is racist. It's absolutely blowing my mind. And as a liberal and a leftist and everything, like it sucks to see this because the people who it's other leftists who are ganging up on this woman in this situation that's totally not her fault at all. She is literally the victim in this situation. And what does this do? It gives the actual racist people fuel to be like, look at how Democrats are destroying our society. And it really gives them fuel to be more racist. And it just does, it's like not helping the situation at all. Yeah. And a bunch of people have said this, that like, um, I always think of that cartoon where it's the rich capitalist guy who's supposed to be like Rupert Murdoch or whatever. Um, and the one guy's got a he has the huge pile of cookies, right? And the worker has one cookie and the immigrant has no cookies, and the capitalist says, "Watch out, or that immigrant's gonna steal your cookie." And it's the same thing. It's like they keep us fighting over this identity politics stuff, the gender stuff, um, the race stuff, because this is like pure race baiting, pure race rage they're trying to establish. They keep us fighting over this stuff, and what are they doing? They're making billions. They're stealing billions of dollars. They're getting away without paying their fair share of taxes. It's insane, and they're just scooting away with it while we all, foam at the mouth to hate each other on the internet. It's so, so toxic. So yeah, anyways, the real story is that she had paid for this bike. The already posted the receipts of her paying for this bike or whatever. And subsequent to that, she's on the bike, ready to commute home, 6 months pregnant, also, by the way. Had coming off a 12-hour shift. She's a physician's assistant. Why would she be trying to steal a bike from a group of 5 kids? That's the thing. Their original story just straight up does not make any sense. Why would a woman who's a physician's assistant, probably making $250,000 a year or something in New York City, going to steal a bike from some kids? She could just take an Uber or whatever. Like, insane. Totally insane story, but people went with it and they ruined her life over this. They ruined her life. They got her job to suspend her. People were calling her employer en masse. They posted her address. They're sending her death threats. Insane. The little tiny bit that I have been bullied on the internet, like, I can empathize very hard with this woman, and I feel horrible for her. I can't even imagine going through all this when you're 6 months pregnant, worrying, is this gonna stress of this gonna have a negative impact on my pregnancy? I can't imagine how stressful that is. And in that situation, and then people are like, "Oh, well, even if she did pay for the bike and stuff, she was still crying. She was still yelling help and stuff." Yes, because these guys are like touching her. They're literally assaulting her. Came up out of nowhere. I don't Have people never encountered a group of teenage boys before? Because that shit's like super scary, right? I cannot even imagine if a group of 5 teenage boys who I don't know all come and swarm around me. They have their hands on her, they have their hands on her bike, they're not letting her go. That's terrifying. That is totally terrifying. Of course you're gonna cry in that situation. That's insane. It's insane to expect people have this expectation of the perfect victim, right? Of course you're gonna cry and have a breakdown. I hope she gets a massive payday from her employer. They wrote about how, they found her behavior disturbing or something, whatever. And so they reinforced the narrative that she had done something wrong, which all she did wrong was to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and be a victim. It's like, if do it, you can never blame a victim in that situation. She did nothing wrong. She got on a bike to, you know, to commute home from a 12-hour shift of taking care of sick and injured people at the hospital. What are we doing? What are we doing? Yes, this was another thing that I said, and I didn't see a lot of people comment this, but I'm like, they're 5 kids and they got one bike. Like, she didn't do anything. Yeah, so I really wanna make a video about this and stand up for this poor woman, in the tiny way that I can in this tiny little corner, but I've seen so few people standing up for her, and just insane. It's like, on the surface, I think I wanna start my video by saying, since she is a medical professional, like, in medicine, um They say when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras, which is like Occam's razor, right? The simplest explanation is probably what is true. Um, I don't know about at the moment, but initially, yes, they took the sides of the kid, which is crazy because think about that situation. So, in order for their story to be true, that this small, definitely appears small in the video relative to them. She's like a foot shorter than the small pregnant woman who's a professional making good money, working in a hospital in New York, treating a variety of patients, um, that she's and again, in order to believe their story is true, you have to believe that she's a white supremacist because that's what they were saying, um, which is insane. Absolutely insane. Not just a racist, but a white supremacist, um, who, was trying to get these kids killed. So that's what she did after her shift. Instead of she just wants to commute home, she wanted to pretend that they were assaulting her so she could get them killed. So that's totally insane. And I can't believe so many people went with that narrative when the much clearer thing is she's on a bike and this roving gang of kids came up to her and started to harass her. That to me is just such a like easier it's Occam's razor. It's horses not zebras, right? Like that. Have people never interacted like, there are teenage boys who will just ruin your life for fun. They will harass the hell out of you just as a form of entertainment. I don't understand how people don't get that that's a real thing. It has nothing to do with race. White boys will do this too. Hispanic boys will do this too. This is just something that teenage boys do. Dude, I was at this, community center a few years ago. This is, like, before COVID, probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I was on my laptop, and I was just doing work, and these kids from behind me started throwing rocks at me, and I was so pissed, these boys. They were probably, like, 13 years old or something, and I'm like at the time, I'm like, "I'm 35 years old," or whatever. Can I please, like, go pick on someone your own age, Like, I'm just like, they will harass a person just to get a reaction. It's same thing as internet trolls. They're just doing it in real life, and the fact that they post this stuff to the internet, it's purely for clout or whatever. Um, Radical says, "I've been harassed by teen boys." It they are horrible. They will do it just for their own entertainment, and I don't understand why people don't get that. Lee says, "Thank you for the donation." Men don't get a pass for misogyny because of race. And I really do feel like the media is just so hard right now trying to push this race narrative, and it's like it's so toxic. And as a person who's really very anti-racism and try to do what I can to speak about it, things like that, it's really hard to see it. And the thing with the guy on the subway, which I think is a very unrelated issue to the city bike thing, um it's like it's very obvious that guy should not have died. Okay, like there's not even a single person who's like, yeah, that guy deserved to die. That's never been part of the argument. But it's like what happened there, you know? Um Guys threatening people. 5 people called 911 to say that they felt their lives were in danger. So what are we supposed to do in that situation? We're just supposed to let the person do whatever they want and start to attack people and whatever? Or are you supposed to Unfortunately, the government has made it such that we're forced to live in this country with 400 million guns, and you don't know who has one. There are MSs every single day, multiple times a day in different parts of the country. None of us are immune to it, and when you're out in public in a crowded place, you could be the next victim of it. So, um, I it's just it's things are escalating and just getting more and more insane by the day, I think. And I think people are starting to get that the word Karen is really misogynistic. I've seen at least quite a few comments of people being like, "Can we please stop using that word? Can we please stop? Can the media please stop using that word?" Like the post I made yesterday about it, I think it's really, really wrong. Um, and they don't mean Karen, you know. Um, so I think it's very cowardly for the media to hide behind that, you know, or not just bitch, but white bitch, right? And somehow that's acceptable. Somehow it's acceptable. Oh, a white woman. So, you know, I've talked about this before, but white women don't have real power, right? Like compared to white men. When Trump was elected, um, they said white women got Trump elected because 50 I think 57% of white women voted for Trump. And that is shameful. That's really bad. Like that's not a good thing. But it's sort of dismissing the fact that a much greater percentage of white men voted for him. So it's like, oh, you're taking the responsibility for this bad thing that happened and placing it on women. It seems like no matter what, it's always like women are the ones to blame. No matter even if women are the victims, they're still the ones to blame. So it seemed to take forever for non-feminists to realize it's just a misogynistic slur. Yeah. For sure. Um It's not good. I've seen a lot of people commenting, like, that there's I've seen comments like, "There's so little racism that people actually have to manufacture it," right? Like this situation with the woman on the bike, and I don't think that there's so little racism. I think racism is really real, and it's a really big problem. But, first of all, you don't need to make up fake things. I think there's so many actual examples of racism. Why do you have to destroy this one poor woman's life over this whole thing? Um, exactly. It's very similar to that. It's funny because I've known 4 or 5 Karens in my life, and every one of them was sweet as heck, would never even argue with a waiter. I feel like I've heard that from women named Karen, like, "Please stop. Stop." Let's see, I definitely, like, saved some comments that I thought were good. Women are to blame for men's actions, always. Someone said, okay, so I'd saved some comments from Reddit because, I do that. Okay, so someone said, "We need to stop with the term Karen, especially in supposedly reputable media publications. Can you even imagine if people came up with a stereotypical name for a different gender and race? People would find that abhorrent and rightfully so." Exactly. Can you imagine if we came up with a name and called, pe you know, for Black women or Asian women or white men or Black men or Asian men, you know what I mean? Like, that's insane. It's insane that, um it's insane Reddit still has users. I'm on Reddit. I just posted in, like, r/swimming. It's, let's see. It's wild because these boys are laughing and smiling like it's funny. For them, it's amusing like a game. The pregnant woman is clearly distressed. We can criticize her behavior all we want, but people behave irrationally when they are wronged or distressed. I agree. I don't think there was anything at all wrong with her behavior. She started to like panic and cry because she's being surrounded by a bunch of strange dudes. Yeah, Reddit's pretty cool if you stick to, I mean, ultimately it's a porn site, so there's that. But if you stick to the kitty cat subs. There's no male equivalent to Karen, which says it all. There's no male equivalent to the B word. There just isn't. Any other word that's like magnitude level of the B word is gender neutral. So there's no like male specific B word. Oh, I want pho. I haven't had pho in ages. I wanna learn how to make it, but I don't think I can get all the, like, what's that sugar that's in it, you know? I don't think I can get that. I don't even have an Asian, grocery store here because I live in the middle of the woods. Let's see, what other comments did I save here? Like, this was one of the biggest tweets. Let me see if I can share this. Actually, let's see if I do this. There we go. Okay. Okay. I'm so tech savvy, y'all. So tech savvy. Let's see. Present. Share screen. Screenshot. There we go. Okay. Am I sharing that? There we go. Okay. Let's make it big. That's not very big. Sorry. Can I zoom in? Okay. A suspected white supremacist woman tried to steal a city bike from a Black kid after he paid for it. And when he and his friends wouldn't allow her to steal it, she went, sorry, is it racist to correct this guy's grammar? I am a proofreader after all for a living, so him and his friends really it hurts me. It's like a physically painful. When he and his friends wouldn't allow her to steal it, she went through all the Karen tactics to try to get the Black youths hemmed up. Screaming for help, fake crying, mayo, ... I don't even know what that means. Mayo, ... Okay. Mayonnaise. People are weird. People are strange. Here was another, hold on, let me do this again. Mm. I'm a little tech savvy, but I'm not super tech savvy. Okay. Lib left hilariously not believing women in a wave to protect black kids who were clearly acting malicious. That's kind of been the trend. They're so far to the left. Actually, I don't think these people are far to the left at all. I think that they're right of center, but whatever. That they're actually right now. Well, I do agree. They are on the right. They're neoliberal people, right? Like it's not actual like people have to understand what what left means. It means prioritizing workers' rights above everything else. That's what being a leftist is. Prioritizing workers' rights above everything else. That has nothing to do with any of that. It's not like this is why it annoys me so much when people are like leftists. It's like this has nothing to do with leftists at all, right? Lisa's scroat. Scroat. Um Erasing women from the conversation for men in the trans debate. Nice, refreshing to see that getting upvoted on Reddit. Now ignoring pregnant women in favor of black men who are maliciously trying to not pay for a city bike from a pregnant woman. Like, that's the thing, dude. White supremacist is such an insane claim, right? Like, that means that she's like going to Klan meetings or something. Like, what's a white supremacist? Like, what? Based on that interaction? Even if she didn't say a single racist thing or anything, even if she was legitimately a bike thief, even if it was a white woman stealing from, whites are that's such an extreme thing to call somebody. I agree. This is the two sides that war within me, the two wolves, like I do think focusing on workers' rights, get rid of this. Hi. I think focusing on workers' rights, is like a rising tide that lifts all boats, and it disproportionately benefits women. And I think it's a way that we can do feminism without doing feminism. It's a way that you can get everybody on board with improving the lives of women without ever having to give a shit about women specifically. This is a little true-ish, but again, there's certain aspect of workers' rights that will benefit women disproportionately, and none of these people are ever going to care about feminism. One of my favorite memes is that inside you there are two wolves. You should probably see a doctor. The recommended number of wolves to be inside you is 0. There's more and more pushback on Pedit against the trans cult. More users are recognizing that it's being imposed on them from the top and resent it. Yes, it's happening. I feel that it's organically going to go away, and I'm less and less worried about it. That's why I really don't talk about it too much anymore. I just don't think it's going to be something that we're going to have to worry about. Exactly. What about her workers' rights? Her employer suspended her immediately too, instead of just asking for receipts and renting the bike. And they put her on blast too. They wrote a whole thing about her on Twitter about how her behavior was disturbing and all this stuff. It's like, oh my God. What? Asking for her recipes. Yeah, receipts. Totally wild. Totally wild. Look at this. This is like what I'm talking about here. And these tweets have a lot of likes too, right? It's not like they just have a few likes there. Let me do this. Sarah Jane Comrie, the city bike Karen who fake cried for help from a group of young black men, reminds us of Carolyn Bryant Dunham, who accused Emmett Till and got him lynched. The fact that she's a nurse, she's probably killed and neglected so many minorities. That's it. It's like, it's like so mind blowing. How about this? This is like, here's 42,000 likes. 42,000 likes. City Bike Karen has deleted all her social media accounts. Don't hide now, bitch. Be as loud and proud as you were when you weaponized your white lady tears and screamed help to try to get those young black men killed. Imagine getting put on the Summer Jam screen and having it impact your entire family negatively because you are an entitled white bitch. What is wrong? Like, what is actually wrong with people? This behavior is insane. This behavior is totally insane. It's totally insane. I have been thinking, get rid of that. Okay. I've been thinking about this other topic, which I feel like kind of fits in peripherally. Let me see if I can find it. The topic of, oh yes, doing anything for views, doing anything for likes, sacrificing your integrity, sacrificing your, just being a decent human being just to get views and likes. It's insane. It's totally insane. Julie says hating on women is virtually without consequence, completely. And what's crazy is, I read it, and actually I gave a comment on Reddit, an award, because I had some gold, so I gave a comment, an award. I don't know if I can find it though, but basically they were like, these people will see this video on their lunch break or something, right? And they'll comment on it, and they'll call this woman a white supremacist, and they'll ruin her life, right? And then they just go about their day, and that's it. Like, it's like, it's no big deal to them, right? But that's how people like ruin other people's lives on the internet. And it's just like a joke, and it's just funny, and it's like just like a fun little 30 seconds of their day, And that's the insane thing about the internet, is it's permission for people to be anonymously toxic. She was also unable to exit the situation because they had circled her. That's like, I can't even imagine. That's a terrifying situation to be in. Of course she was crying. It's like insane for people to be like, oh, she wasn't acting. She was crying. She was upset. She is like clearly the victim. That's the thing. Like, a person who's like being assaulted and who's upset is like, they're the perpetrator. Totally crazy. I think that's why the story is just like, I don't know, man. I've gotten I'm a little obsessed with it because I just feel like it's just such a gross, egregious injustice. And I don't like that. I don't like egregious injustice. Oh yeah, the whole anything for views. I don't know if you guys saw that, the mommy blogger who like accused people of kidnapping her children just to get views. There was the guy who crashed his airplane just to get views. And it's like people are doing all like go outside. Get outside, touch grass. There's more to this world. There's more to life than getting clicks and views and likes and stuff. It's like very sad. If that's what your life is revolving around, it's just so it's like it's so sad. I think the original one of those was the Logan Paul in the forest with the dead body. Again, it's just very sad that people will do anything for views. And Radical is really my role model for just not giving an F about any of that. And I feel like I've you know, have some integrity. It's like there's a lot of things that people can do to get views that are just but you have to sacrifice like being a decent person. Right? But a lot of people are willing to sacrifice that. A lot of people like do not care. They just straight up don't. They're like you have to be lacking something. You have to be lacking something deep inside, you know, to um to feel that your worth or your value comes from that, you know? Like Adrian says the tragic flaw of this age has no principles. I feel that we're lost, and I feel like the internet has been a very, very bad for us. It's not been positive. It's not moved us forward. I really don't think that it has. Go offline. I say on the internet. All right. Do we have anything else we want to talk about? I've got some more time. I'm going to do 2 hours. I'm going to have to probably edit this video a little bit. I'm going to leave it up though, because I said some bad words. Some internet is good as a treat. I agree. You know, I really, having principles is associated with being conservative. That's so funny. Yeah, it should be a treat. That's what it is. It should be a treat. It should be like I was saying, dial-up days, you know, just like a little bit of internet. Oh yeah. The other thing is like, you know, when you used to scroll and you would reach the end. Like I used to have websites that I looked at and it would be like, okay, I'm all caught up. That's the end. That's all there is. I'm caught up. Now I can sign off and go do something in the real world because there's nothing else to look at. It's been a pretty long time since we had that. I don't know if any of you saw this woman, Heather Armstrong, recently passed away by her own hand. But she was okay. So she was a blogger. She had a blog called Deuce that was popular in the early days, like 2001, 2, 3. And I used to read her blog, and she shaped a lot of the way that I communicate on the internet. And I'm sure many, many people, because she had millions of people reading her blog. And I really think it was her and people like her who actually shaped, you know, blogging and vlogging and all those kinds of things. And I remember one post that she made that really stood out with me was after she had a child, and afterwards she wrote about being constipated after having a child, and that she had been constipated for 5 days or something, and that it was like actually terrifying to go to the bathroom after all this, ordeal of childbirth and then being extremely, like, constipated on top of that. And I'm like, I think I was reading that I was probably, like, 22 years old or something. And you have to understand there was this did not exist. Anything, you know, anything like that did not exist. People having those conversations, putting themselves out there, talking about poop and stuff, like, it didn't it was, like, revolutionary, and it had, like, a big impact on me that a woman, no shame, no fear, to share her life in that way for the benefit of other people and also to just get it off her own chest. And she also wrote about being depressed in an era where, like, you didn't talk about that, right? It's not like today where people put their diagnoses in their bio and everything. That was very, very, very taboo. She opened up a lot of those taboos for people to talk about things like that. So, um, you know, anyways, yeah, no, she passed away a week or 2 ago. I've been thinking about that, and how the internet has really changed and evolved since then, since the early days. But I remember she had a blog, and then I was like, I want to have a blog. And I had a live journal, and I've always been a diarist. I still keep a diary offline, but some of us have that desire to express ourselves, whether people are watching or not. And, you know, anyways, Radical still has live journal. I deleted mine. Existential, my entire childhood was without internet. Mine was too. It didn't get internet till like maybe my last 2 years of high school. When I was like, I think it was a junior in high school, we had AOL. So, and then AOL was, it was its own thing. It was just curated. It was like, imagine the internet, but there's literally 14 articles and that's all it is. I remember in AOL, they had like one, early. It was more like reading a magazine or something. It was like they had an article with like Halloween costumes and they had pictures of Halloween costumes and that's it. And then that article was gone the next week because it wasn't Halloween anymore. And then it was on to whatever else. And that's what it was like. It was like reading, it was like a little magazine online. And that was the whole internet. That was the whole internet. There wasn't like go to a website. It was all curated for you. So and even like when I went to college, there was nothing really online component of classes or anything like that. It was all very offline. So I guess it's like easy to idealize that time. I got into like I was watching a bunch. I don't know if this topic comes up often, but like I was watching like 9/11 nostalgia vids, just like that time period was so idyllic in some ways in my mind. But yeah, those were the days. It's like I feel like that's what I talk about half the time on my channel. It's just like things were better back in the day. How can we recreate that? Just get offline. I've been going to yoga a ton. I've been going almost every single day. I love the community that I'm a part of. It's amazing. And yeah, I think it's just super important to cultivate your offline existence. Yep. Well, we got 10 minutes left, y'all, so anything you wanna bring up, anything at all. Um, I kinda wanna read this article. Let me pop it open. To save this for next time. I'm glad we had no trolls today, so that was very good. I wasn't sure about that, and I'm glad. Troll-free day. We love that. We love that. I'm ready to talk to trolls, though, if I have to. I have things to say to trolls, mainly work on making your life better. Um, this article, mothers are living single together. They all have beach waves, which is like, I don't like that. I don't like high effort hairstyles. Just let your hair be. They're all doing each other's beach waves. Nothing wrong with her hair in this state right here. That's her natural hair. Leave it. Anyways, this is kind of fascinating to me too, but I think someone was talking in the comments of this article about the, just to bring it back full circle, not really, but, about the female not communal living or communal raising of children, in Ghana specifically. And no men. No men. So, that's chill as hell. Well, I guess if maybe there's male children, but male children are fine in ways. Existential loves trolls. Please do not invoke trolls. High effort hair. Oh, speaking of, I cut my hair. I don't know, it's not really, like, that much shorter, but I did cut it, and initially I was like, initially I was devastated. I was like, "What have I done?" I, used to refer to my hair as my princess hair, which is very regressive and anti-feminist. Lisa, you're a bad feminist. But I did love my hair. It was so long and beautiful, and I just had to cut it. It was like it was so unhealthy, I think from swimming. Um, I've been swimming a lot, and I just chose swimming over my super long hair. It's still pretty long, but it's more like medium length now. I might add some more layers at some point, but it's not quite ready for more layers yet. And, yeah. Yeah, at first I was just like, "Oh my god, I butchered myself." I did it myself, obviously. And then I was like, "I actually like it. It feels fresh." Yeah, it was like every time I was brushing it, like, it was just disintegrating at the end, like, it was coming off in, like, little 1 centimeter pieces. Like, every time I would brush, it would just be, like, 1 centimeter little hairs all over um, my shirt. It would be really gross. So it was falling apart. It was just a mess. And it was just a lot a lot to, wash it and dry it every time I'm swimming. I'm swimming like 3 times a week now, optimally. So, um, yeah, the other thing about having super long hair is when it sheds, it's just there's just so damn much hair everywhere because just by dint of it being long. When I was in college, I had it down to my waist, and then I got really depressed and stuff, and so I cut it, like, up to here, but literally just, like, walked past the bathroom one day last week, and I was like, "I'm gonna cut my hair right now," and I did. And that's that. So, I told Radical at first, "What have I done? I ruined my hair. Why do I care so much? It's just hair, it'll grow back." Um, yes. I've always had carpet, but in my house now it's hardwood, and the amount of hair I notice, my god. True, I have carpet, but if I vacuum, it all gets caught in the vacuum cleaner. It's so disgusting. Yeah. I told myself that I would keep my hair super long because I cut like 7 inches off. It was like here before. So it was quite a lot longer. And I told myself, you know what? I'm gonna keep my hair super, super long until I start to get gray hair. And then I'm like, what if I never get gray hair? My aunt passed away kind of recently and she was like 88, never had gray hair. So could happen. Um, but yeah, that's the hair portion of the stream. Other than that, everything's been going good. I definitely feel like I want to do it. I feel a little bit fired up about the city bike thing, and I probably will try to make a video about that. It's been very hard for me to like, I don't know, I just haven't felt like writing much lately. I've been reading so much and working so much that's like it's hard for me to write. My sister is only 3 years older than me, and her hair is mostly gray too, but she dyes it. So I think it's just a pure genetic luck. My dad didn't start getting gray hair till he was like 65 or something. So my sister started getting gray hair when she was probably around 30. It's just what it is. I love the Mommune idea. It's a great alternative to relying on support from boyfriends, stepdads who present a potential risk to the kids and mother alike. The only thing I would be Radical, I didn't know you had gray hair. You're so young. That's so interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it turns out or if it just fades from memory. It's like there's gotta be more news places picked it up. So I feel like yeah, I don't know. It will be interesting. The only thing that worries me about the mommunes, this is what I was gonna say, was is like say you all buy a house together and then somebody say it's like four of you or something or three of you and you buy a house together and then you decide you want to move or something. How do you get someone to like come into that? You can't like just sell your portion of the house. You know what I mean? It's different than like being do you all have to move then? You know, like you all have to sell the house and then move. You got to have an agreement about that or something because I just don't trust people to not be like flaky and you know, just look out for themselves. Oh, Radical sent me sent me a picture of her gray hair. Wow, you look so distinguished. Graying is sneaky and blondes. Well, you know what I've noticed on occasion is a black hair. But I haven't had too many of them. But I don't know. I think for some blondes it turns black first before it turns gray. Or that may be just a random outlier thing. Instead of all this co-living and co-housing and well, right, but most people don't have the money to do that. That's the problem. It's like, oh yeah, you could just buy out their share. Yeah, cool. Where are you gonna get another like I guess you get a loan or reconfigure your loan or something if you can afford it. But like the whole point is you couldn't afford it at the beginning. I think instead of all of this gymnastics, we should just pay workers more and tax rich people. And maybe CEOs shouldn't be making 375 times what the average worker makes or whatever. And then maybe people would be able to afford housing. How about we do that? Like, that seems to make a little more sense. Oh, Julie's still mostly blonde at 65. Well, we love to hear that. I hope I stay blonde for as long as possible. Is that problematic? All right. On that note, I'm going to let you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for spending a couple of hours with me. I really enjoyed the article. Then we got into a whole other conversation. Um, and that's good too. The article was nice and uplifting. Maybe we'll do Mommunes next week. Radical's also off on Monday, but she's got a lot of personal stuff going on. So we talked about streaming, but maybe we won't. I also want to stream yoga at some point. I feel like I want to start a new channel just for like fitness stuff. It's gonna become like a meme that I just mention this like every time I stream, like, I want to do yoga and then never do it because I think it's literally been 6 months since I've been talking about this. I bought, oh, it's over here. Hold on one second. Hopefully I don't get like staticky. Yes. Yeah, there's half of this. Okay. I bought one of these. I bought one of these little microphones. You know, you clip it on. It's like every fitness person on YouTube has those microphones. So I bought the microphone, which I was like, I need a, you know, wearable microphone in order to do yoga. And I bought that like a few months ago, and I never did it. So, okay. Anyways, Friday streams are the best way to start the weekend. Dude, I agree. I feel like I've missed streaming. This was really fun. And yeah, I also miss streaming with Radical. She's been like laying low, and that's fine. And at some point we'll stream again. You could read your main career during Shavasana. I actually like that. I like when teachers do reading. I like all the hippie yoga stuff. I like when teachers do readings during Shavasana. I like doing Om. I like when teachers burn incense. I like all the little yoga extras. Like I don't just like do it for a workout. Like I do it for the whole like spiritual thing, you know? So I love all that stuff. But anywho. All right. Namaste. I'll see you all soon. Thank you for joining me. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye.